right, here we are again. So anybody who's on the live stream, welcome. I see there's a few people here now, so we're gonna go ahead, and this is a continuation from last week's stream where we used Adobe Animate to go through and create some dynamic visuals. I got some ideas for this time around how we can just add some additional stuff to it, right? And I mentioned some of these things last time. So let's just have a look and see where we left off last time and what we're dealing with right now. If I do a test movie from Animate. There we go. And of course we can refresh this and we get a completely different pattern every time we do it. So you can generate some really cool visuals this way. And this is just using Create.js libraries inside of Animate alongside JavaScript and so forth. So let's actually go through and open up our Actions panel. Hey, Anissa, happy Wednesday to you as well. Thank you. And hello, Reverb Mike. So what do I have here? Just as another recap, we've got the width and height of our stage being captured here. We set an initial X position variable. And what else? We've got our randomization functions. So this one here, random, this is gonna pull back a number between two numbers, and these can be partial numbers, right? So they can have a decimal point. Random whole is another function that we created, and this brings back a whole number between the two numbers that we feed it. So this is how we're getting those random values to place different things at. We have our Create.js ticker here. This is the heartbeat of the application. And what happens is it'll run as many times per second as we have the Adobe Animate document FPS set to. So the FPS setting, if we look here, is set to 60 frames per second. So if we open this up, this ticker runs, there's a tick 60 times every second. So it's generating a lot of different stuff. And we just have a draw loop, which runs each tick, which goes through and adds either a ball or a ring from our library. And yeah, it places them at random X and Y positions. It creates a random scale for it. We also get, and let's actually bump that up a little bit, 0.5 and 1. We could even do like a 1.5. Let's do that. We'll just increase everything basically by 0.5. We have a random alpha value. That's the opacity, the transparency. And then we basically increase the X position. What we're doing is we're actually having it go through from one side of the stage to the other. And you can see when we test it, how it paints that way. And we just add them to the stage each time. Let's have a look again. That one was quite full. Try another one. And of course, you can play with all these different numbers in order to get something of interest, right? So today, I want to actually add some motion to this, and I want to layer it as well. So right now, if we look on our stage, I guess this is the first thing we could do. If we look on our stage, we have our actions layer here and our scratch layer. The scratch layer I just use to draw things on the stage. Let's add a new layer for a background image. I'm gonna just name this image. Pull it down to the bottom of the layer stack. And I've gone ahead and gone to Unsplash just to locate an interesting photo that we can use as a background image. So just right-clicking and copying that image should allow me to go ahead and just paste it right in here in this image layer. Do a Control V to paste. And there we go. So we can, of course, shift this around and get the specific colors that we want. That looks pretty good. So now if we go ahead and test it again. All right, so we can see there's now, right, this this background image that's adding to our design. So there's other things we could do as well inside of here. And yeah, it's getting to be a bit obscured, so let's go ahead and change some of this code. Find our opacity, our alpha right here. We're going from 0.1 to 0.3. Gosh, that's funny. It's acting like we're going quite a bit more than that. It's like a solid 1.0. Interesting. See, now I'm just throwing numbers at it. But actually, that's more what I was expecting to happen there. So that's pretty good. Let's go ahead and keep it at those settings there. And, oh! Wow. So Anissa mentions that Unsplash was bought by Getty Images. I didn't realize that. That's interesting. I assume they'll still be the same model and so forth, still be free for most use. Hopefully, because none of my students can really use Adobe stock because of the licensing around that and their subscriptions through the university and so forth. So they have to get their stock photography from elsewhere. So Unsplash has been a nice way to, you know, allow them to do that without having to worry about royalties and things like that. So, Reverb Mike mentions that radio waves in After Effects will do rings. So that's cool. I haven't looked at that. Yeah, After Effects, I've been looking more and more into After Effects lately as we go. It's really nice. I mean, you know, of course, Animate and After Effects have some similarities, but there are many, many differences between the two programs, too. I'm teaching After Effects in, not next week, but the week after in that large class, so. All right, so I'm going to add, what I'm going to do here is run, let's actually create a container to store these guys in. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new variable up here. So var, I'm going to call it C. It's going to equal a new create.js. Gosh, I haven't done this in so long. Container. I think I might have done it right. Wow. Incredible. Then we'll go ahead and add that to the stage, just like we do down here. Stage add child. We're going to say stage.add child. We're going to pass in C, which is my container. So inside of create.js, a container is like it's just an empty container. It's like you can put anything you want in there, but it's really useful when it comes to things like, you know, dynamically generated objects. I've also used this in terms of game development and things like that. And gosh, do we use that in my book? So right above my head up there is a picture of my new book. There is a chapter on game development, but I can't remember if we actually use container or not. inside of there. It's useful for grouping things, so you can sort through a collection of objects. You can look through all their different children and then react to those different things, compare hit states and things like that. Hey, Hannah, how are you? Hope you're doing well. Yeah, we're doing some JavaScript code today, so yeah. I was trying to remember, like, well, not remember, but I was trying to decide last week whether I wanted to use ActionScript for this or whether I wanted to use JavaScript. And really, I want to use ActionScript because it's better, right? But to make it more applicable, I chose to use JavaScript. Which honestly, Create.js, if you're doing stuff like this, it makes it very, very similar. So it's not a big deal. So let's have a look. So I've got my container, and the container is just an empty container. It can, we can generate things inside of it, and at that point, it has width and height and so forth. But right now, it's just this completely empty thing that's been added to the stage. Like if I ran this again right now, it would have no appearance whatsoever. But I'm gonna go down here and, oh, here we go. So right now we're adding our child, which is B. So that could be, again, either a ball or a ring. We're adding that to the stage, but we can also add it to the container. Just say C add child and pass that in. And it should actually look exactly the same when I test it. Oops. It popped up in my other window. There we go. Yeah, so you can see it looks very, 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 very similar. The difference is that in this version that we ran a little bit ago, it's adding them directly to the stage, all these circles and rings. And over here, it's actually adding them to a container which exists on the stage. So, not a huge difference here. However, let's make it interesting, right? So, we've got B, we've got C. I'm going to go ahead and actually jump into my actions wizard. So, all the code we've done so far has been pretty much just handwritten, right? The actions wizard, which you can find right here, add using wizard. If I click this, this will walk you through how to create pieces of code step by step. So what I want to do is, well, I don't want to do any of these things, but I can just put something in as a placeholder here, and it doesn't care. Let's just say get frame number and hit next. We're going to say with this frame. This is the code we really want. Finish and add. And now if we look down here, what we find is that, oh gosh. So it's just gone ahead and done that. That's not what we wanted at all. Get the frame number of the current frame, and that's it. Not quite. So what we really want to do, and I suppose we could do this, actually, why am I doing it like this? We can do this within our ticker here. So we have draw loop. Okay, that's fine. But what I want to do also is I want to have another little function here that's going to rotate the container, right? So again, container is just referenced as C, simply because that's how I've defined it up here in new create.js container. Let's go ahead and say C dot rotation. And now this is tricky because I can't remember what rotation values actually exist inside of Create.js. So rotation plus equals 1. What plus equals is going to do, so this is a little shorthand operator to say, yeah, I want to take the current value and increase it by whatever. So in this case, 1. And let's have that happen down below instead. So right, well, draw a loop. right after this, pop it in there. So this will still execute with the ticker. Right? So let's see what happens. This is the best part, is going through and just seeing how things kind of work. So you can see it's clumped up my my objects here inside the container, and it's just rotating them around and around and around. So you can see that the transform point of my container is actually like up in the top left here. So it's rotating around there. I really want to offset it to right here. So how, I could do that up here. Let's see, C. And I always appreciate it in a code editor when we get these little hints based on things. So it knows the different properties and functions of a container because we've declared it as a container here. So I want to change my transform point. And hopefully it's not too weird to do that, right? Sometimes with things, it just things are just very difficult to do, more difficult than they need to be. And this was, of course, one of the beauties of ActionScript, right? Adobe could just write their own stuff, and they wouldn't have to abide by certain things. Everything in Create.js, of course, has to abide by all the little JavaScript quirks that we have. Get transform bounds. I want to set my transform point, so let's kind of go down to S. Oh, reg. See, this is the point where you might want to look inside of your inside of the Create.js. Hey, look at that. Set transform. I wonder if that would do it. Let's give it a shot. So X and Y. Let's say well, the X would be half of our canvas width, right? Divided by 2. Y is going to be same thing, but height. I have no idea if this is going to work. Which is fun. So scaling, rotation. I don't know what. Oh, then we get the registration X and Y. I don't know. Hey, let's run it and see what happens. I got a feeling this is not the right property to use. Oh, look at that. It's, wow, it completely, like, moved it all the way over there. Which is kind of cool. Why is it doing that? So I've got an idea. Yeah, boop, boop, boop. CreateJS.com, and we're gonna go to docs. So I can't remember. I think we looked at docs last time too. It's always good to reference the docs. It's always good to reference examples and things like this. And gosh, I haven't written much code in the past 2 years. I was just looking at a bunch of stuff in my old Bitbucket account of some really cool Angular applications and just like straight up vanilla JavaScript apps that I wrote a few years back. And it was cool. It was good stuff. But I don't do that stuff anymore. So I have to just sort of like do it as I can, whether it's like, you know, something for a book or whatever, you know, maybe a lynda.com or LinkedIn Learning course, or something like this, a Behance live stream. So what we want to look for is, let's actually find container here. And it probably inherits everything from display object. So let's go ahead and click on that instead. Yeah, my JS definitely has cobwebs on it and running all the way through it. And it's funny, like the people, you know, on social and everything that I've followed over the years, I still follow so many people who do, you know, heavy dev stuff all the time, but it's so absolutely irrelevant to most of what I do now that it's, yeah, it's funny. All right, so let's see, set transform. Let's see what these things actually do. Horizontal translation point, whereas the regex is the horizontal registration point. I'm thinking the translation point is really actually. So let's see. And you know what was nice about the action script stuff? So, and I don't mean for this to be like, you know, just going all out with you know, trashing JavaScript or anything. But one of the nice things about the ActionScript documentation was that there would almost always be like a little example underneath. You know, they'd talk about the parameters, what it returns, and then there'd be a little example. And, you know, the CreateJS docs don't really have that. Well, here's a little example right here. Now that I just said they don't have it, there we go. There it is. So let's go ahead and actually, let's put this whole thing in here. I think that might be part of why this isn't exactly working like I want it to. It just seems to be overshot. So we're going to add in the device pixel ratio, which again from last time has to do with, it's pretty close now. It's closer than it was. And of course, this might also have to do with our initial exposition here. Let's go ahead and set that at 0 now. And we'll go ahead and see what happens. I don't know. It's not exactly doing what I want it to. You know, one thing you could always do is instead of trying to calculate it, you could always set it like this. So if we look in our documentation, or our document, it's 550 by 400. So 550 divided by 2, 225, I think. Wait, no, it's not. I'm terrible at math. That's why I have computers do it. 400, that's 200, that's easy enough. So 225 and 225 is 450, not 550. So we need to add 50 to that, I think. Hey! Well, I think part of this problem, again, is just this initial exposition. Let's actually forget about that. So originally I had it going from like one side to the other and filling up. But, you know, as this has evolved, and we have no goal here, right? We're just kind of like going through and just playing with stuff. When you have a goal, things get boring. So we're going to do a random between 0 and 500. Oh boy. Did I ever goof it now? Exposition plus 3. Yeah, so we're just going, let's see, with plus 500. Who cares about that? Let's just go with random number between 0 and W. And you know what we can do too is we can replace C with stage just to make sure that we're not like goofing up. Oh gosh. Oh yeah, look at that. Woo! Here we go. So I actually like completely busted the thing. So where else am I referencing exposition? Oh, there we go. Look at that. Ooh. All right, let's get rid of it. So you notice here I'm checking. Actually, let's do this differently. So notice here I'm checking to see if exposition is greater than or equal to 160. So that's what I did last time to know when to stop generating these things, or else they just generate forever. We can do it by the container right here. So if I do C dot children dot length, yes. So we can specify if children dot length is less than or equal to a certain number. I don't know what that number should be. So let's just put in 300. There we go. Let's go ahead and do it now. I shouldn't get any errors anymore. Woo! Yeah. Cool. 300 looks like a lot. We could always suppress it by tick number too. So something that's interesting. Wow, it just keeps going. Pretty cool. It's completely obscured my background though. So let's go ahead and, yeah, who cares about exposition? Let's go ahead and change stage back to my container so we can watch it rotate and see if that's gonna look okay. Yeah, so it's still doing it as like a little clumpy clump. Which is interesting. Oh, you know, I know why. Because we're adding it to... We're starting at 0, right? But we're starting at 0 of this guy here, right? 0. Let's go. Change that back to like negative 500. In each case, negative, well, 550 and negative 400? I don't know. Or maybe we should half that. There we go. Yeah. That's what I'm going for right there. Of course, we do need some additional stuff. Let's go ahead and modify this some more. Let's create 2 containers and then rotate them differently. This could be cool. So I'm gonna go and we got our container here, C. I'm gonna have a new one here. And I'm gonna rename this one to C1, container 1. C1, and this one's gonna be container 2. So just rename both of those. They're all set up, they're good. And we're gonna look first here at C1. And 300 is a lot. Let's take that down to 100. There's C1. 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 And let's clean this up a little bit with my spacing here. So draw loop. I'm gonna copy this fellow right here. And just add that as a C2. 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 Now, all of these little variables right here are going to be conflicted when we go through here. So that is a problem. But we can do the same sort of thing. I1 and I2. That's fine. Oh, B needs to be B2. height and width are both controlled elsewhere. C1, now we need to do B1. I could just leave it at B, but it looks better if they conform to a certain format, right? So B1, B2 instead of B and B2. I, J, I, J. C1. Cool. So we're using the same heartbeat for each of these. Of course, you could break them both up into two different functions and call them both. So difference here, we're going to do rotation negative equal to 1 for C2. So creating two containers. In our draw loop, we're going to do both C1 and C2. Just generating these different things randomly, adding them to each container, and each container is going to rotate a different direction. Sweet. Hopefully I did that all correctly. So let's see. You got a problem somewhere. Let's inspect. And sure enough, we can see these little numbers coming up here. That tells us we got some errors. B. So I didn't mention a B at one point. Let's go ahead and fix that. There's a stray B down here. Oh, look at that. B2. And we don't really even need that anymore, logging that stuff. But there it is. Test it again. Yeah. This is programming, ladies and gentlemen. This is what you spend all your time doing. Uncaught reference error. B is not defined again. So I missed another B. Let's go ahead and search for it. Oh, and there it is. B1. I think we're good. Oh, look at that. There we go. Perfect. Very hypnotic. Very cool. So fun. Okay. So there's other things we can do too. And of course, all of this JavaScript just running all the time is making my MacBook Pro hot. And its fan is going. So another thing we could do is actually change the rotation for each. Well, if we do this a lot, it's going to be a little crazy. But we could offset it a bit. So let's do 0.4 for one direction and just 1 for the other. Yeah, and now it's a little more variable. Cool. Now, maybe I want to do some extra stuff in here too. Let's make this a little more richer. And I'm going to go ahead and create a object display object right on top of my image. Come here, buddy. just to kind of make that, just lessen it a little bit. And actually, let's go into the image too. I'm gonna go in my image, create a movie clip symbol out of that. Image. And now that it's a movie clip symbol, I can, of course, apply color effects and stuff like that. I want to apply a filter. I'm going to do a blur filter. I'm going to just blur this guy out a bit. Ooh, sick. Yeah. All right. So let's select him and send him to the back. And I've got this guy. I don't even know if I need this guy anymore, though, because he's all blurred out real nice now. I'll put a little bit of that fill color right there. And that looks pretty cool. So, let's have a peek. Yeah, it's okay. I'm gonna go into my library and change my ball. I never want this ball to be fully opaque. So let's pull down the fill just to 66% here. We'll do the same thing to the ring. Just pull that down. Oh, that's already 70%. Well, no wonder it's behaving much better than the ball is. Nice. Let's play. All right. So that's pretty cool, but it'd be interesting if it just kept going. And this will probably be the last thing that I do here. It's getting rather verbose in my script window. Let's see, what's a good way to do this? So we can check if C2 children length is greater than 100, then what we're going to do is remove some of these children. So we're going to say C2 dot, not remove all children. Let's not be crazy here, right? Let's see, remove child at. So we could just remove the child at 0. Let's remove a group of them at a time. Let's get rid of 5 of these guys. 1. So these are indexes, just like when we did stuff with our array. So 5 different positions of our children, starting at index of 0 through 4, that's 5. We're going to do the same thing for C1. This way, it'll always generate new children. Of course, we could always use our randomization function too, and just pick a random child. Get out of there. Get out of there. Let's see. Uh-oh. Broke it. Hey, see you, Nissa. Thanks for joining. Oh, unexpected token. Oh, goodness. Well, that's easy enough. Oh, yeah. I have not closed my parentheses in either of these places. So, let's do that. Syntax matters when it comes to code. Strangely enough. It's not doing anything. That's fun. So, if length is less... Oh, jeez. Yeah, so if length is greater than 100, that's when I want to remove things. I'm just constantly removing things as I add them. Otherwise, let's go ahead and do it again. Ah, look at that. All right, so it's generating them all. And oh, look at that. Now it's removing them as well. That's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and full screen this. Isn't there a way to full screen? Here we go. Ooh. Yeah. Not bad. Just a little bit of JavaScript inside of Animate to do this. So pretty cool. So if we wanted to take this a step further, we could always add behaviors to each one of these instances as we create them. So we could say, like, you know, when we create an instance, it would go ahead and like drop the opacity a little bit each time as it enters the frame until its opacity was 0, and then we could remove it, right? And that would be contained within each little instance here. So we'd have 200 of those little checks happening all at once internally. We could do other things like, you know, change the scale as a per unit basis and things like that. Working with a container works pretty good though. And of course, the more containers you layer up, the more complex and more interesting things can get. Exit full screen. You can see it runs a lot better down here. It's pretty cool. I always like doing generative stuff, just dynamically adding stuff to visuals. And, you know, like I said, it does get really interesting when you have each one of these things have its own little internal behaviors. And again, that's one of the really nice things about ActionScript. You could assign a class to a movie clip symbol and just have that thing run on its own. It would be nice and internalized and compact and everything. Pretty cool. All right. Well, I think that's good for today. Yeah, thanks everyone who's on the live stream for joining me today. Next week, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. So I'm undecided, but I do have to figure that out fairly soon. So I'll probably give it some thought later today, after my classes and everything. Yeah, fun. Well, this is pretty close to what I envisioned, so it makes me happy. Right on. Long goodbyes, right? So see everyone later. Thanks again, and until next time.